via web.
And welcome back to Ohio Football Weekly here on Yamo Media. We're with you for an hour each and every Wednesday talking high school football with you. We'll go around the state of Ohio. We'll take a look at the top 10 rankings across the state of Ohio, some of the great performances from week number 3 of the high school football season. It's hard to believe that we're into week number 4. NFL hasn't played a regular season game yet. The colleges are really just into week number I hate that week 0 stuff that they throw at you that first week of the season. To me, this is week 2 of the college football season, not this will be week 3 of the college football season. Well, it gets too confusing if you do all that stuff. But those colleges are still just down to some are playing their second game. Some will be playing their first game this week. And while the high schools, they're going into week number 4. And this is where the computer rankings really start to become a factor as we look ahead to the state football playoffs, which start at the end of October. And as I mentioned, Joe Eitel from joeeitel.com is visiting with us here this evening on Ohio Football Weekly. Joe, always good to see you, my friend. And we interviewed each other. I interviewed you last year. We talked about this. I guess the first question whenever someone talks to you about this, how did you get into this, and what led you to become joeeitel.com?
Oh, wow. It's been a while now. So I kind of got into it. I started following the Harbin rankings back when I was in high school, just kind of follow the local school team and the other county schools, just kind of see if I could figure out where they would end up being ranked at the end of the year. So, and then, after I graduated college, I needed some sort of programming exercise to kind of keep me busy. And it seemed like a natural fit. So once I was able to collect all the scores, which is actually the more difficult piece, the Harbin formula is, at least I feel, is pretty straightforward. But yeah, once I had the scores and I was able to calculate the rankings, I just decided to start publishing them, and it seemed like it kind of just took off from there.
Are you surprised at the reaction you get on Fridays, Saturdays? I guess this probably stretches even into Sundays for you as well, too. I would imagine your site gets quite a few hits, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets still gets a good number of hits. It's still increasing a little bit each year, a certain percentage. It's kind of, as the season goes, it peaks and valleys. Like on Fridays and Saturdays and into Sundays, it goes up, and then towards in the middle of the week it goes down, and then with each new week it peaks a little higher, and until week 10 it just I think it was 2.7 or 2.8 million views just on the Friday and Saturday of week 10 last year. So
have the views, Joe, and the hits, have they gone down at all since the field expanded to 16 schools per region?
No, it seems to. So I think the last time I had checked, of course, the COVID year, let's just throw that out.
Right.
The 2019 or 2018, I think, was the last time I'd checked before, and it was about 2 million page views for that last 2 days. That's kind of like the peak time. So last year was about 2.8. So I'd say it's continued to kind of slowly trend upward. Probably as some people kind of continue to visit over time, and as well as new visitors, maybe some new parents of some players, maybe find out about the site and come for the first time.
Are you surprised at the way this has, I guess, taken off? You mentioned when the Harbin ratings started. Was that 1972 when the state started to use the Harbin ratings?
Yeah, they ran a few trials, I believe in 71, and then it was officially approved for the 72 season.
Are you surprised at the way this has taken off?
Just the site in general?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the site in general. Yeah.
Yes. A little bit. I initially probably thought it would be like a 2 to 3 year project. It wasn't really something I had a long-term vision. But the feedback was a lot of positives from fans, coaches, sports writers, and whatnot. So I kind of made some adjustments to make sure I could preserve the history and continue to show the past seasons as well as look forward. So yeah, it was a little surprising that A, that it took off, and B, that it's kind of maintained that momentum for 23 years now, I guess. But
I can tell you from a broadcaster standpoint, your site is invaluable in going back in history and just finding out recent games and how teams fared against one another and division breakdowns and all of those things. Take us through a Friday for you, Joe. When do you start tabulating all of this? How long does it take? And how do you gather all the information that you gather?
Yeah. So it's normally about 9 o'clock on a Friday night is when some of the first scores start trickling in on Twitter. That's usually where I get probably, I'd say probably 95% or more of the scores. I try to follow the school websites, the athletic directors and the sports writers as well, just to kind of make sure I'm picking up the most accurate set of scores possible. So yeah, it starts about 9 o'clock with the first few finals, and I'll just keep, there's a general inflow of scores that the finals keep trickling in to the point where all the games pretty much final, and I'm playing catch up, and it usually takes me till probably around midnight, sometimes 12:30, to get all the Friday evening scores keyed in.
What about the weekends? How long does this process take to get everything final? I would imagine you're probably done sometime Sunday.
Yep. So Saturday, I try to keep up with the games as they go on. There are usually a few early afternoon games, a few in the mid-afternoon, and a handful in the evening. So I'll usually try to update throughout the day as I'm watching, college football. Kind of continue. So yeah, I can usually finish them up by Saturday night. Of course, these past few weeks there was a Sunday game involving St. X down in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. As well as there was a postponed game from Saturday night that ended up being played Saturday or Sunday this week as well.
I think when we talked last year, Joe, I asked you if this is I guess for lack of a better term, a labor of love for you right now. You don't make any money off of this. You're not affiliated with the Ohio High School Athletic Association in an official regard. I mean, I know they fall on your rankings as well, too, but this is something that, well, you obviously have to enjoy what you're doing to keep doing this on a daily basis or a yearly basis for you. But is it fair to call it a labor of love for you?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. At least for the terms of the site itself, keeping that running, yes. I mean, I do actually provide the rankings to the OHSA now as well, background. But yeah, as far as keeping the site up and the schedules and scores, that's kind of been a labor of love. I'm hoping to expand that here soon with some more historical information.
Well, talk about that. Well, what else can you add? I mean, the history, the scores. It's for me, like I said, from a broadcaster standpoint, you're a great resource to go back and look at past games and past matchups and things along those lines. What else can you add to it?
Sure. So I've been working off and on for the past probably 15 years now of collecting some historical scores. I'm pretty much back to at least, I believe, 1970 now.
Wow.
And in addition to scores, I'm kind of planning on, I've got the coaching information as well for most of that same time range. I got a few holes I got to fill out still, and as well as league and conference affiliations and things like that, as well as I kind of like to be able to kind of reproduce the Harbin rankings for those years, just to see how, if my data matches up with what was, official. Just that'll help me figure out if I have some reverse scores or something like that, so I can try to make it as accurate as possible from a historical perspective.
How unique is what you do, Joe, to high school football across the country? Do other states do something similar? And have you been approached by other states to possibly take your system to another state?
No, and I mean, and I hesitate. It's not my system. I mean, it's my programming, but it's the it's the Harbin system. So it's not really something that I would be involved in. I don't think with regards to other states, but I think there are some of the other states have they track their schedules and scores and things like that. And I know I don't know. Some of them have some sort of ranking system. It's not quite exactly like the Harbin system, but it's their own flavor. Maybe in some cases it may have been inspired by it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's sort of unique, but I'm definitely aware of other sites like in Kentucky and Michigan, Indiana that have also historical scores and coaches and things like that. So.
I know, Joe, and we'll wrap up our conversation on this, and you were right on the money when you said, let's just take 2020 and throw it out the window and forget about it. But everybody got in the playoffs that year, and there has been that talk that, well, if we can do it in a year like that, then we can do it all together in Ohio, or we can do it every year in the state of Ohio. I personally don't agree with that. I like 16, I think, per region is a very good number for something like this, Joe. When you talk about teams into the postseason, is this with a state this size with so many schools that play football, Joe? Is this the best way to do it?
I think that's an interesting question. So I think it's definitely a very good way to do it, and it's withstood the test of time. If you think about it, it's been over 50 years now that the same general system's been in play. But to your question about should everybody get in or not, I mean, if you really look back from 1972 until now, there's always been change, right? It started out with one team per region and 3 divisions, and then just kind of every so many years, it seems like either the number of divisions increases or the number of qualifiers per region increases. So, and that's really kind of continued. I think we had 8 teams per region from 1999 until 2019, so about 21 years. So I think it's probably likely that we'll see some more change in the future. I mean, that's just my guess. But it may be another 20 years or so. But and we don't know what's going to happen or not happen with respect to 8-man football and things like that. That's a whole nother can of worms. But yeah, I think it's a good way to do it in terms of the objectivity of the system. It's kind of throws out the names on the jersey, and everybody gets the same amount of points based on the divisions of the schools you're beating and things like that. So it takes some of the bias out.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Joe Eitel, joeeitel.com, the most popular website perhaps in the state of Ohio on high school football Fridays and Saturdays around the state. Joe, it's always good to spend some time with you. I thank you for jumping on with us here this evening and kind of giving folks an idea as to what you do and how you do it. And I know folks who follow high school football will be going to your website a lot as we close it on the state football playoffs. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, Marty. Thanks for having me.